welcome to the first video podcast edition of The Cure and the Cause with me, the Afrolicious Mama, aka Simone, and my special guest for the non-racist to anti-racist edition is Managing Director of Defected Records, Wes Saunders.
Mine and my wife's 40th this year, and the kids are 21 and 18. We planned to go to America on like on a bit of a road trip, but we'd planned for like 10 years, and then with the COVID-19 obviously put those plans to rest. But during the first 2 months of the year, I was working like 14, 16-hour days to get everything handed over. Then the coronavirus happened, so I ended up working like dealing with that, and I think everybody's ready to go back to work, and I'm needing a holiday.
I just got the notification that the studio's open again, so that I didn't do the cartwheel, and I haven't done one of those for years. It was like you. It was my 40th. It's my 40th this year, and on the 5th of August. So I had big plans for that. So I planned my entrance on the opening night of the festival. Everything was planned. I'd secured someone to babysit for 2 weeks. But yeah, you just adapt and grow, I guess. Yeah. So it's in a way it's been quite good to kind of adjust and think about where you really want to go with the next stages in your life and stuff. So I'm trying to find the blessing in the situation always.
Yeah. I mean, I've been saying to the kids, it's like, use this as an opportunity to think about who you want to be, because you're never going to have another opportunity where life has been paused. And I know that's like far from ideal, but it's definitely something that, you need to somehow use this time to kind of reflect and just improve. It's like, I talk a lot about sort of being better than the person you were yesterday. And it's like, just use this opportunity to kind of grow as a human being, and it's, if anything good's going to come out of it, then that is something that could be good that comes out of it.
In general, because it's more or less the same things that I say to my girls. And so they've been on all different little projects, and now the youngest wants to be, she's always kind of wanted to do whatever mum is doing. So yeah, my decks are no longer my own. Yeah, but
so she's stolen them.
Yeah, well, I think because for me, the whole thing of learning to mix was my dad was a sound man, and so but he had this big thing about girls shouldn't be around the whole culture, the sound system culture and everything. So he wouldn't let me touch the decks beyond dusting vinyl, cleaning and changing his needles, and making sure the penny's always in place. I wasn't really allowed to go near, so that's never left me the urge that I wanted. So I'll move forward to. I just want to start by giving the listeners an insight to who you are as a person, professionally, personally, and musically, and what brought you on your journeys and how you got to this point in your life.
Okay, yeah, sure. So my name is Wes Saunders, and I'm Managing Director of Defected Records. That encompasses the Defected brand, the Glitterbox brand, and the Classic Music Company. As we've mentioned, I don't know if the piece before will be in, but obviously turning 40 this year, and it's been quite an interesting journey for me, life. In my late teens, I was always a big fan of dance music and used to be an avid clubber, and I was DJing in various sort of clubs under various sort of brands and touring with, Global Underground, Renaissance kind of brands, and then following your Sasha and Digweeds around the country. And then when we were very young, me and my now wife fell pregnant when we were 18 with our daughter, who's was born just shy of my 19th birthday. So I focused on what my mother-in-law called a real job, and I worked in investment banking for 12 years. I worked for Deutsche Bank actually for 12 years. I was promoted every 2 years I was there, and I was vice president on the way to director. And sadly, my, at the time, 24-year-old brother was diagnosed with and died of leukemia in 23 days. And it really just turned my world upside down. And I realised you only live once, and that banking wasn't for me, and I wanted to go back into music. And thankfully, my wife was supportive and my manager was supportive, and I took a minute to work together, see out all of the work that I was doing, and he actually made me redundant, which put me in a position where I didn't have any money, but I didn't have any debts. So we were able to work and on kind of focusing on developing a career for myself in music. So I started off running a small, excuse me, independent record label and DJing and producing again, something that I'd done for a while. And we ended up with, I got my first paycheck after 3 months, and it was like 265 quid. And I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to live off of this. So I put my effort into developing what was one label into a label suite, which became 5 labels, teaching young people how to produce. I started a concept called First Steps, which became integrated into a charity organisation called 8 Media in Stratford, which was teaching young students around East London and Stratford area to produce music, and to TV production, DJ mixing, and radio presenting. And we went on to work closely with the council and develop a lot of youngsters. At the same time, I was still running the other labels and DJing and producing myself and managing artists. And I got to a point where I just felt like I was working every waking hour, and I just couldn't get any further. So I'd been introduced to Simon Dunmore through Kevin Saunderson, and I'd written or helped produce some of the 20th anniversary remixes of Inner City Good Life. And I'd worked with Kevin, and I'd taught his sons how to produce, or worked with a team of people teaching his sons how to produce. And from that point, I had been introduced to Simon, and I just, 3 a.m. one night, I just sent him an email saying, look, this is who I am, this is what I've done. I'm looking for a mentor. So Simon Dunmore, the owner of Defected Records, invited me in for a chat. I went in. Simon's time was pretty precious, actually. And I was in there for every time I tell this story, it gets longer. I'm sure it was about 2 to 3 hours that we were in there together talking. And a couple of days later, he called me and asked me if I wanted the job. So he offered me the position as club promotions manager. And at the time, I wasn't sure exactly what that was, but it was basically getting records into the hands of DJs to play music. So club DJs and radio DJs to play Defected Records. So I took that opportunity, started my position there, demonstrated my ability to do other aspects of the business, became executive producer of the radio show, became label manager, and I stayed responsible for doing all these things at the same time, by the way. Became head of marketing for recordings, then head of marketing for the business, which encompassed the events piece. And I was doing all of that. And at the time that the previous managing director was leaving, and Simon asked me if I wanted the job. And it seemed like all of my experiences in life and business had all kind of led me into one path. And there I was with all my sort of managerial and senior management experience in banking, and my love and sort of progression in dance music. And I took the position, and I've been managing director since 2017, actually. So yeah, it's and here we are. So over the past 3 years have been an interesting journey, having completed the very first time that we ever did both Defected and Glitterbox in Croatia, in Ibiza at the same time as we did our Croatia festival, and then integrating and kicking off the new London festival, as well as working, and signing a number of key titles over that time, including Camel Fat and Elderbrook Cola, and more recently Endor Pump It Up. So it's been a pretty interesting journey. And now 2020 has given me the new challenges that I never expected to face.
2020 has given you a little bit of a sabbatical that you needed.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, 2020 has been a pretty mad year, because we had lots of intentions. I mean, last year we did over 200 gigs, and this year we were probably going to do more. We would be doing our second London Festival, etc. All of our events have been cancelled, so we've lost. So 65% of the income of the business comes from the events, actually. But we've managed to work the business in a way and very quickly adapt to a way that we can focus our attention on back onto recordings, where, first and foremost, Defected is a record label. So we really focused our attention on that and giving people something, a ray of light in terms of the virtual festivals, so that we can keep promoting positivity and equality and things that we believe in and have done for a long time, to kind of keep people's momentum and kind of morale up, shall we say, during these challenging times, and be there for everybody, and it's been, because of that, it's not been a sabbatical.
Exactly.
But I'm not complaining.
Now you say it like that, just understanding how you need to have had to adapt and transition to moving from what you're used to into the virtual realm. Yeah, that must have been a big thing, because me myself, I'm feeling a lot of synergy between our stories. So when we initially spoke and we had our conversation on Instagram, it was actually the anniversary of my first Race for Life. So it really touched me that you took the time on your brother's anniversary to have the conversation. But even going back further into your story, I come from a financial background, investment bank and everything, and music has always touched me. So, and I'm kind of on a journey into the music industry. So it's nice to hear your story and give me hope that I can transition from corporate into what is my passion, which is music and healing. And I feel the two go in hand in hand. And that's kind of a bit of how my story started, with how I met how I found Defect. Back in 2015, believe it or not, I was a travel agent, but I'd never flown before. I had a big fear of flying. I'd left a toxic relationship, and my uncle just said to me, "I'm taking you on holiday, we're going." So he said Ibiza, and my whole impression of Ibiza couple, which is just an example of how the media can give you a perception. So I booked a one-way ticket, thinking if I don't like it, I can leave after 1 or 2 days. The intention was to stay 4 days, and I think I came back after 11. I'd never ever been to a house rave. I'd been to clubs in London, smaller clubs, but I'd never been to a big rave or a big club. So my first ever experience was Together and Defected in 2015. And I walked in there, and it was just like a whole new world. And it literally touched my soul and just changed me in so many ways, and opened up a lot for me, made me realise the life I was living wasn't the life I had to have. I could achieve anything. So so there's a lot of synergy on the journey. So what I'm going to ask you next is, what advice would you give to somebody who's trying to emerge in the music industry?
It's going to be a really challenging time at the moment, because obviously there's a lot of companies, especially where they're events based, and they're doing either whether they do gigs or they're involved in gigs, or they have DJs managing or agency. It's like with no gigs, very unlikely that many, if any, gigs will happen this year. That's going to have a huge impact on DJs, because in all honesty, they don't really get paid too much from, or the lion's share of what their earnings come from gigs as opposed to music in the main, although some of our DJs earn, some significant amounts of money through recordings. So it's going to require a bit of patience at the moment. I mean, when we first went into lockdown, my advice to our DJs and producers was to get busy in the studio and get creative, use it as a time to make music, use it as a time to, similar to what we were talking about at the top of the podcast, is making sure that you take time to reflect on who you want to be, get your social media in order, get your house in order, get your spend some time producing music, and really use the time to network and talk to people that you're interested in working with, or whatever it is, whichever angle that you're looking to go down. Because once things do start again, I do expect there to be opportunity, but it's not going to be like it was in December. It's going to take a moment for companies to re-establish themselves. I mean, just, we've taken significant pay cuts in order to make sure that the business can stay afloat and that we don't have to make anybody redundant. And we're fortunate that is a solution for us, where other businesses have had to make mass redundancies, let staff go, furloughs, or other alternative methods. So I think patience is going to be the first thing, really understanding, but using the time to network and really kind of figuring out who it is and what it is you want to do and be. And be ready, just be ready, because if you're not doing that right now, somebody else is, and they will beat you to it. And so just try to get yourself prepared for which kind of aspect you want to, which road you want to go down. That would be my advice right now.
Okay, brilliant. Okay.
Now, that would have been very different advice previously, I must say. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one because the circumstances in the world is very different one than we parked back in March.
Yeah, we used to talk about a new world order when we was younger. We used to joke about it, but it actually feels like this is a new world order. This is a new way of life right
Yeah.
now. Yeah, definitely. So our conversation started from an email that stemmed from the murder of George Floyd and me auditing my life and how I look at racism and institutionally, structurally, and things like that. And I emailed you, and it was quite emotional. And your response was very quick to me and very open and very honest. So I'd like to discuss a little bit about that, or for you to speak on how it was for you to receive that from somebody who's a fan of the brand.
Yeah, no worries. So obviously you you sent an email to us at Defective, which at the time neither of us knew went into the spam folder, and you'd been requesting a refund for Defective Croatia as it was 2 years in the planning for your 40th birthday, and obviously was intending on attending and celebrate with your family. And in your email, you'd expressed a concern that you felt that as a brand, our anti-racism approach was simply branding, and that our response was reactionary and failed not only you, but all black people associated with a brand, and that your 9-year-old daughter, an aspiring DJ, was upset to find that we had 0 black people working for the brand on LinkedIn, which obviously since explained that isn't necessarily the case. So I know you obviously went on to thank us for being a comfort for you when you escaped, the challenges that you've faced in your personal life, and wrote that unfortunately our love is now tainted, which was a comment which I was really sort of upset to read. And I hadn't seen your email at the time, as obviously it'd been held up. And I spotted a comment from you on an Instagram post I made, which you said that you felt like your email had been somewhat addressed. So I reached out to you via Instagram to let you know I hadn't received the email, and subsequently you sent it on to me, and I'd asked the guys to look into it and try to find the email from your name, which I was assuming would be similar to your Instagram handle, and we managed to find it. But my Instagram post at the time was very personal, and I explained that, if you know me personally, I'm an honest person, and I truly believe actions speak louder than words, and I believe it's important to take responsibility and to be decisive and act, and that I think we should be better than the person you were yesterday. I'm not competitive at all. I'm just like, right, let's just do better than the person I was yesterday. And I try to encourage that with my children and the colleagues and everybody that I get to have the opportunity to talk to about life. So I explained that obviously I feel like I have a duty of care to carry on the work that Defected and more recently Glitterbox has undertaken for 20 years now to enhance and to elevate and create more opportunity and to take away questions, to use my position and platforms to help improve the challenges we face, past, present and future, but specifically around the Black Lives Matter issues that we're facing across the world right now. I described in my post how we'd taken time to reflect and that our actions weren't tokenism, and that it wasn't a reaction to a political situation, and it's very much an everyday situation that does require constant and continued attention and change, and that it just cannot be a moment in time, and that we need to improve the work and efforts that we've been undertaking quite simply since the company began, and that obviously time will tell and actions will speak louder than words, and that I'm absolutely aware of that. So I explained that I take my responsibilities as managing director, as a man, to always try to do the right thing. Obviously, I'm a white man. I don't know if this is going to be a video or a podcast, but obviously, I'm a white man. I'm not racist. I'm not anti-white. I'm pro-black, and it's now time for me to figure out how to become anti-racist. And this is very much a new step for me. I have been guilty of being that guy that says that he's not racist and has good intentions, but perhaps it's not necessarily the reaction and the attitude that we need to take. And this is a new learning curve, even for somebody like myself in my position. It's something I didn't understand until the sad and tragic death of George Floyd, but now I think I'm beginning to understand. And together with my Black friends, I have and I'll continue to learn and read and research and try to understand more and more And so, you know, and this is something I'm actively looking to promote across the company. So for us all, it's a step that we can take into being better than the person we were yesterday, and hopefully begin to contribute to making a change to the world, and acknowledging that, you know, being non-racist isn't enough anymore. So I'd gone on in my post to explain all of this, and to explain and thank the black DJs and staff and associates and community for their input into the discussions of that week, and especially during such difficult and challenging times. And there were lots of kind comments and the pros and cons, and we discussed the good things and the not so good things and the uncomfortable things and the things that require our attention, and what our ongoing and next steps will be, and what they'll continue to be, and how we're going to try to find new and improved ways to play our part in improving the inequality that exists, and also to help educate, because there will be no conclusion. This is evolution now, and, you know, we have to listen, and it's time to show. So you then obviously responded to my message, and at the same time I'd asked my guys to check again, and found multiple emails in our spam folder which we'd missed. I must apologize to you for that. But I reached out again, and like almost immediately and asked you to apologize that someone hadn't been in touch. And firstly, I wanted to say that I acknowledged then, and I acknowledge now, that you commented to say that your email had been somewhat addressed. So thank you for that. I mean, you definitely showed your hand as much as I hope that we have showed ours. And I think that's really important for us to work together. You know, we believe that about togetherness, and in our house, we're all equal, etc. It's really important for us to have this dialogue with our community and our fans, as well as you being able to tell us the other way around on the things that are not, you know, you're not happy about. And we do listen. So I went on to clarify certain points in your email, to explain that the post wasn't reactionary, including our post about George Floyd, which I know we acknowledge was later than we should have done. I mean, George Floyd died on the Monday evening, I believe, and we posted on the Saturday, and it was something we'd been discussing for a couple of days internally. And I understand that, you know, in light of certain public questions, that people will feel like it was a little bit reactionary, and we perhaps should have posted a little bit earlier, which, you know, we acknowledge, but it wasn't a reaction. Our posts on that Saturday were absolutely something we planned and intended to do, and something, you know, we're very particular about our communications, because it's important that we do the right thing that we believe in, and that we are conscious of how sometimes these situations can be quite emotional, and we wanted to make sure that our actions weren't considered as reactionary. And unfortunately that did somewhat become the case, but I can assure you it wasn't. I explained that I obviously would like to hope that our community have trust in us as a brand, and we are honest, but we acknowledge we have work to do, and we recognize that. We continue to consult with our black staff and DJs and friends and community, as I've mentioned. And obviously your daughter mentioned about our staff. So on the subject of staff, we do have black people and people of colour in our offices. And actually at the peak season across our employment, we employ a lot of black people or people of colour. When you take into account the, you know, people that get paid a living, shall we say, from Defected, it can extend quite far. But again, with our office, people of colour and black people in our office, it isn't enough. And we are, you know, I'm not sure if they're on LinkedIn or not, by the way, but we are working and talking to to people about ways that we can help to improve that. And we're continuing to consult and work with black staff, artists and friends in those areas of improvement. And there are a number of steps that we take, some which we'll share publicly and others we'll work on behind the scenes. But our actions are more important than our words. It's like, you know, you and I could have this conversation, but if nothing happens, it means nothing. And I'm you know, definitely not that guy. So I hope in time that you're happy with the measures and actions that we undertake. We can't change the world overnight. And at the moment, the circumstances are further restricted than what they would normally be, but we'll certainly do what we need to do for sure. And I do have faith. I've said this a few times to people across social media and the internet. I do have faith in new, younger music execs in the music industry to slowly enforce change. And I hope I'm right. Time will tell. And I hope others follow, as for all the attention the music industry is given to the Black Lives Matter, I'm not necessarily seeing that in other sectors yet, and the whole world needs to wake up. It's really important. I think our exchange, I obviously acknowledge that, we were an escape for you during your past experiences, and certainly sorry to hear that you experienced such challenging life issues, shall we say. And I hope that our message had somewhat helped us to reconnect with you personally and as a brand. And very kindly, you responded and thanked me for my message in the conversation, and identified the fact that it is actually conversations like this that will bring change, and they will be able to acknowledge and learn and grow together, and be the basis of evolution. And you felt that the problems that needed addressing were obviously, so to quote your words, multifaceted and entrenched in our cultures, which we absolutely agree with. And again, I think we spoke about the conversations about healthy discussion and healing, and helped you engage in a proactive dialogue that's actually having a positive impact, and explaining that you felt you had to speak up as a patron and someone that's benefited from some best friends that you made at Defected events, and finding the courage to leave your job and chase your dreams and build a new business, creating amazing memories, and couldn't defend your love for Defected without having this conversation. And that's everything that we're about, right? It's really important for us to have that connection with our community, because we are you. Yeah. We love dance music in the same way as you do. And I wish sometimes I could be on the dance floor on the other side of what we do. But that togetherness and the acceptance and the equality that you find at the Defected and Glitterbox events, I think anybody that's been to our events will feel that. And that runs right the way through the lifeblood of what everything we do, right away from Simon Dunmore through me through to our staff, and that's important. And then you kindly invited me to your podcast, and here we are. So, and having seen you dance on the dance floor with me spinning garage tunes, I was obviously more than happy to discuss with you and tell our story.
Well, that moment when you was DJing at Defected and Croatian 2018 was actually my FU cancer holiday, because I just got the result say that I got the all clear, no further action, and I'd had this report that my daughter was never going to experience Glitterbox with me and things like that, and I was like, you know what, let me just book 2 tickets. So we ended up doing a week in Ibiza before, a day in Rome, which was like Hell's Kitchen, maybe a story for another time. And then we ended up, then we arrived at Defected Croatia, and we had the most amazing experience listening to music that my mum had listened to with me and now with my daughter, which was really special because we're really massive Aretha Franklin fans. So to experience all of her music and have that experience just in 2018, just before she passed, and to have the love of everyone in the community at that time was amazing. But the most amazing thing that happened to me on that holiday was the friends that I made, the energy that I received, and I felt that was a big part of me coming to terms with that. Okay, I had cancer, what next? And it was in Split on the way back. I planned recovery days and massages whenever we go on holiday or do anything. So we've done recovery days, juices, done all of that, massages at the beach. And then we was at a bar and was just sitting there, and everyone was like, this holiday was about you, Simone, what do you want to toast? And I said, let's toast rave recuperation, recovery from the rave. And it literally, in that holiday, that moment, it sparked everything. So it's literally kind of taken me from a whole new work, my whole life of toxic relationships and personal issues, into believing in myself, being confident to wear my natural hair as a black woman. That Defected gave me that, so I think that was probably part of why I was so emotional. At the speed, I think it was more the speed of a reaction, and a lot of people I've spoken to is like, we need you now, we need you now. It was that energy that it came from. So a lot of people that I know on different sectors of the house scene was like, where's your beloved Defected now? So the email came from that energy. I always had faith because I knew what I'd received and how I felt as a black woman going to Defected. So I knew that I had to have the conversation to see what had happened and where it can go and what will happen moving forward.
Yeah.
So I just felt in that moment that I felt so strongly about my beliefs as a black woman, but also so strongly about what I perceived as defective that I had to have this conversation. So yeah.
And I understand that. I mean, I understand this, you know, I mean, we wasn't silent. I think we were perhaps a little, we could have done and said more, but we weren't silent. And I think that it took us a moment to acknowledge there's a key turn in my mind where it was that non-racist to anti-racist attitude that it's, in all honesty, as a white person, is eye-opening. And it was, I spoke to one of our black staff members a couple of days before, and we'd said he was the one that kind of pointed that out to me. And we spoke about the interview process, and that, you know, he said that he felt judged during the interview process. And even though it was like, and I explained to him, but I was interviewing you. Of course I was judging everybody I was interviewing, you know, but it's, but the way he felt compared to the way that I felt was there was a disconnect. And he's gone, you know, he went on to explain how, you know, he doesn't feel like that at all, obviously now. And it wasn't, but when I started to understand how he felt, and, you know, sort of drill in a little bit further to how his experiences may have been over the years, I started to realize and think about it a little bit more. And you know, I've spoken to a lot of my sort of friends and DJs and associates, and at the moment spending a lot of time reading and researching, because it is trying to understand the history a little bit more. And I think that we yeah, I hope we'll get there. And I you know, I encourage, if people do think that we're, you know, not doing enough and people are speaking up, we are listening, and that's really important for me to express.
Okay, but I feel like I had a great takeaway from our conversation in the sense that I had to understand from a perspective of somebody who's an ally and who's non-racist, and understanding that transition. So I felt in our conversation that I got that, because there was a part that I didn't understand, and I've had to listen, learn, and educate myself as well. And I found that I had to understand that the fact that there were non-racist and allies, but it wasn't enough, and we needed the anti-racism movement to happen to really activate the change. So,
Yeah.
like everybody is expecting our allies to be at the same speed as us, but it's something that we live lifelong. So that's why the learning, listening, and education part is so important for us to move forward and develop and grow. So there's understanding on both sides of the point, because some friends are asking me, Simone, do you see me as racist? And I said, no, I know you're not racist. I just know that I need you to be more than not racist.
Yeah.
Yeah, to move forward. So I'm having a lot of beautiful conversations, but then I'm also, like I've noticed on one of your posts and some of my posts on Facebook, I posted a post because I was getting a lot of racism on my feed. So I decided to do a post to say, if you have any racist ideologies, remove yourself from my page. And I've got quite a few followers because I'm a bit of a bait face on the house scene. So I noticed they're dropping about 200 people on my Facebook, and I was just like, over 10% of people that are friends with me on Facebook,
Yeah,
have racist ideologies, clearly.
Yeah, I lost. I mean, it's in terms of percentage, it's probably under 1%. But in both, when I posted my piece about my personal sort of views on it, I lost 47 people on my Instagram account. And when I posted about the yesterday, I posted a summary about my views on the books I've been reading, and people, another 50 people gone. And it's just like, you know what? No offense, you can, you know, it's
a good detox.
Yeah, exactly that. Because, you know, we do proudly stand with our black artists and producers and DJs and writers and performers and staff and community. And like, we acknowledge that black music, art and creativity has always been the inspiration for all of our activities. And, you know, we do celebrate gospel, soul, funk, jazz, blues, disco. I mean, if you go to my Spotify playlist, it's all black music, and I don't get paid for that. You know, it's just like, it's
the house gospel choir is my thing. Sunday at Red Rooster. Oh,
Yeah, I've not checked them. I need to check them out. But even like house and techno and garage, and obviously it's all music created by Black, Hispanic, and gay LGBTQ plus communities, and we're obviously committed and will proudly use our voice and influence to promote Black music and Black culture and equality, inclusiveness, and acceptance, and try to break down the walls of ignorance, hatred, and division. And if those people don't like what we've got to say, then I'm afraid it's probably a good thing. And we're continuing to invest in and develop development and education and the furtherance of Black communities and staff. I mean, actually, our ongoing and next steps will continue to find new and improved ways to play our part in improving the inequality that exists and help to educate all. There are things that we do now that we do proudly, but we also note that there are always ways to improve. Like, we're going to continue to proudly book Black artists, DJs, live PAs, dancers and performers, and proudly sign Black artists and producers, singer-songwriters. I mean, there's a few that we've been announcing since lockdown that have been in motion for sort of up to about a year to 18 months. And, we continue to promote Black music and continue to listen to Black voices and staff and DJs, artists, friends, no matter how uncomfortable the topics may seem, as you and I are now aware. And we continue to demonstrate zero tolerance to racism and learn to be more openly and vocally anti-racist, both individually and as a public-facing record label. We've highlighted and worked with a company to highlight areas of focus for us to improve. We are going to create further opportunities for and identify ways to improve recruitment opportunities to hire more Black people. We are going to find ways that we can push that within the music industry to encourage a better representation. And we will continue to develop more and more Black artists, as we always have done. And, we are proud of the work that we've done over the past 2 decades, and especially having heard so many compliments by our Black friends for our output, but we absolutely remain restless in our ambition for more. We'll continue to promote and improve the way that we promote Black culture across radio, stories, content and video. And it's all about music for us. And it always is and always will be. And we always have and we'll always want to do more. So we're encouraging company-wide learning. The past couple of weeks have been full of rich conversation internally and externally, uncomfortable discussion, soul searching, consideration. We're obviously recommending reading and viewing and listening as much as we can, as well as actively talking to our counterparts, and we'll continue to learn as one, and we'll always learn more together. We are partnering with, we do a lot. We do some charity work that's in front of the scenes, some that's behind. We'll continue to do our global charity work annually and make donations to global organisations. Black Lives Matter UK and Colour of Change encompass a lot of the discussion, the current dialogue, and are very close to our home, and we're donating and discussing openly with employees too. We are close to confirming a partner that we're going to work as with a patron, where we're going to invest in, and it's in a Black community, which more information will come down the line, but we're going to sponsor 25% of the total student cohorts that they take every year on an ongoing basis. So, over the next sort of 5 years, that's going to become a significant investment in people. And it's something that, we really believe in, and it's music aligned. And, I hope that you like what you see when we finalise that. They're discussions that we'd started again prior to all this happening, but they just sort of, this movement has definitely perhaps sped up some of those discussions a little bit more. And as a company policy, we're supporting our staff fundraising efforts. So regardless of what we're doing as a business, any donations our staff are making, we're matching. So any of the charities, whether it's the Minneapolis funds or whether it's UK based, wherever it is in the world, we're matching our staff donations. And it's really important for us to just continue to echo that it's not a moment in time. We stand in solidarity with all people of colour, and we stand for equality, for diversity, for inclusiveness, for justice, for all victims of racial hatred. And, as I said, in our house, we're all equal. We stand against racism, against ignorance, against any injustice, and against prejudice and discrimination. And we want to be the change and be part of it. So, as you know, and as you saw yesterday, over the weekend, I finished reading a book by Rennie Edo Lodge called Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. And for the benefit of your listeners, I'd highly recommend to anyone who hasn't read it yet. And yesterday I wrote a blog piece on LinkedIn. So reaching out to white people as a white person to explain a little background about the current circumstances and Black Lives Matter. And I've lifted and personalized a 10-minute summary from Blinkist to help people understand what's being asked of them and why. So now's the time for us to learn how to talk about racism and understand privilege. And it's going to take a minute for white people to process and understand. And we need to be patient. But, read the summary if you can, read the book if you can, read it more than once, think, take time to learn. And I hope that together we can start to take steps forward.
So I'm going to ask you, what did you take away from reading that? What did it spark in you after reading that? Did it make a change in you, or did it make you realise something that you hadn't before?
I think it all goes, the key thing for me, the kind of icing on the cake for all of these discussions is this transition and understanding from non-racist to anti-racist. Because understanding the institutional racism and the history, black history, not just in America but in the UK, is not something that they teach at school, or that your parents have been taught at school. And there's a lot to understand, so you can really get into the deep nuances of what it is that is happening right now. And it's important to understand that, to then look back and understand the cultural, the way that this has happened culturally down through history. So, your great grandparents or whoever came to, the UK first in family lines, it's like the way that they've been treated time and time again. And me and Simon Dunmore were talking about the 13th yesterday. Have you seen it yet? On
No,
Netflix?
my kids have just told me, Mum, you better watch it.
He's like, he just said to me yesterday, I haven't watched it yet. He just said, you've got to watch it because, America is basically making a business out of crime and of black people's crimes and slavery. And it's just bonkers. And this is all new, right? This is all new information to us. Like, we never knew, like, honestly, it's new information, and it's just taking that in and understanding.
So on that note, I'm a youth worker, so I've done that voluntary from a young age because I was from a disadvantaged background, and I had youth workers and different kind of key workers that influenced me. So I've always kind of done work for the Prince's Trust, Youth Action 2000, and different organisations. But because of austerity cuts, they can't afford to pay me, so I went back to Harrow and do that voluntary. So in those kind of situations, what I'm noticing is that even though they say it's America, we're starting to build the same systems here. So there's a lot of situations where they put children in isolation, which is kind of, I feel like, preparing them for those kind of things. So the conversations and watching things like 13 and you reading the article by and the book by Rennie Edo-Lodge, these are all things that are going to help everyone have a broader understanding and being able to identify. Because I feel like everybody receives information in different ways, but a lot of people are accepting what they see on media and not reading enough of books and not taking on a lot of literature and not engaging in history at its core.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm finding that more and more so. I've been talking to Mr. Jam, and I have become friends over the years, and been speaking quite a bit to him recently. And I had ordered a number of books, some that are arriving, some that are not. And he's encouraging me to read British on race and identity and belonging, which is Afua Hirsch, is that right? And then like Natives, the race and class of in the ruins of the empire, and how to be anti-racist and how we fight white supremacy. What are the others? The Broken Herd of America and the Condemnation of Blackness. So, yeah, I'm temporarily swapping the TV for books.
I'm going to recommend one for you. I know your list is already long, but there's one by Candice Braithwaite, a London black mommy blogger, and it's called I Am Not Your Baby Mother. And it's
I Am Not Your
Baby Mother.
Mother. Okay, let me make a note of that. Yeah.
Amazing book. It was recently sold out, but it's now restocked. But I think I'm going to get the audio version because I'm ingesting a lot of information, so I think I need to listen on my own.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question, if you don't mind. With all of that in mind, and obviously, there's a lot of discussion, and as I said, actions speak louder than words, and I acknowledge all of that. Do you feel that there's anything else we can be doing right now?
Right now, from what we've spoken on, you're doing a lot, but there is one thing. I'm a black woman in the London music. The black promoter to book certain venues in London, these kind of issues are very difficult. So now there's talks going around like maybe we need to have a black London nightlife culture and things like that because of the glass ceilings and the clubs that won't book us and the golden ratio policy. So what would you suggest for us to kind of create change in that culture in London?
I think maybe highlighting the clubs. I mean, I'll be interested to know whether that's now or whether that's after this. The clubs that you feel don't support black culture, because again, it's quite new to me understanding that, because the clubs that we've always worked with, I don't think you have that experience with, but you may tell me otherwise. So your Ministry of Sounds, your Printworks, places that we do our London events and residencies, even the festival activities. But with I'd like to know where the problems are. In a similar way, I think that whether it's orchestrating a conversation either through a connection, like myself, if I have contacts with them, or like somebody an equivalent that can open that door and conversation, would be a starting point. And I think together, the music industry is here listening right now. There are people, influential people in positions that I think can make a difference and a change. And I definitely recommend that people try to come together to explain that and understand that a little bit more, and do right by the situation. That would be the starting point.
Okay, that's brilliant to know. So that is probably one of the main things. I've actually been having a lot of conversations. I had a Zoom meeting with the MP for Business and Dr. Yvonne Thompson, and that was specifically targeting black women in business. And they feel that during COVID that we've been the most we're the last to receive any of the COVID response or any support. So myself, I'm a startup, so all of my business this year was based on contracts, all my bookings of festivals and things this year, but obviously all of that's gone, so I've kind of pivoted my business. I'm lucky that I can switch and do that, but not everybody has. Not everybody someone in my situation wouldn't be furloughed because I am a startup. So I've had to be really active and switch on and transition my business more online product based. So That's good to hear. And I feel like there's a possibility to connect different people, because I met an amazing police officer at our local socially distanced, very suburban protest, 2 meters apart around the Crystal Palace Park. And I met a policeman called PC Woodbine. It was crazy because it was at a Black Lives Matter protest, but there was a black man with a poster saying all life matters. And the policeman was so frustrated he had to take it upon himself to explain why it wasn't appropriate. So he gave the man analogies like, my house is not on fire, but yours is, that's why I'm helping. He tried for time and time again, and then I just saw he had a eureka moment, and he turned around and he said, are you religious? And quoted him Luke 15 about Jesus protecting, herding 100. One was often lost and wasn't safe, so he wasn't going to look after all of the sheep. He had to go and look after the one sheep that was in danger. So in that moment, everybody had been talking to him, debating with him. Some people was getting frustrated with him, but in that moment, that policeman identified one way to reach him, and the man left. He left, and he nodded and he said, I understand, and he left the protest.
Yeah.
I feel like people like that and the culmination of different energies, it is possible for me to push past the glass ceiling that I'd always seen for myself, that I can do this, but I'll never get to there because. So I feel like these conversations and the anti-racism movement now has moved my dreams even further.
Yep. Yeah. And the other thing with that is that I understand why people were confused by the All Lives Matter conversation, but I saw something that Calvin Harris had shared, which said, we're not saying that all lives don't matter. We're just saying that Black Lives Matter because we don't feel like Black Lives Matter. And it's like, that's what you need to understand, So, and I think that seems to be, I know that, there's the All Black Lives Matter where, because there's obviously a bit some questions raised around, you know, the attitudes towards sort of gay and trans, black gay trans people, or black LGBTQ plus community. So, you know, there's work to be done, and I think I just hope that people acknowledge it and do work together and allow each other the opportunity to work together. Because what's not helpful is when these peaceful protests turn into violence. It's just not going to help, and I just hope that people see that and stop that, because that will just create further social divide. And of course, the media don't help, because the media love to highlight these situations, and I think people as a whole need to learn to switch off from the media somewhat, because they do only tell half the story. And, you know, simple things like, you know, a 49-year-old black man was killed by a white police officer. Just drop the colour from the comms. You know, it's just like, let's focus on the, like, people are people. You know, it's just simple things. It's, don't highlight those. I mean, maybe they do need to highlight it, but I think it's part of the problem. So I think there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, definitely a highlight, not the headline.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
From my daughter. What is the youngest DJ you've booked, and how can you book that?
We ran a competition in Croatia last year where we programmed an entire stage with our community, and the youngest kid, little Philip, I think was 11. He was the youngest person to have ever played for us under my in my era, and I'd love to hear demos and see videos of your daughter when she's ready and confident. And, you know, who knows, maybe she's a future Defected star.
You've just officially given her a deadline, because she's just on Friday. That record. Well, it's been great talking to you.
Yep, as always. Yeah, thank you for inviting me on. And as I say, I just want to say thanks for your understanding and your willingness to discuss, because as much as, you know, I reached out to you, that's important to us as well. So thank you. And I hope that we, you know, stay in touch. Keep me up. If you see things, you have my details. I'm always willing to hear what you have to say. And let's hope that together we can truly achieve our desires of in our house we're all equal. And I'm going to come and give you a hug and buy you a drink when I see you on the dance floor next.
Okay, because the last time I saw you on the dance floor, I think it might have been Croatia 2018, and I was with my daughter dancing to all of the garage I used to listen to, and she remembered nearly all the words to every song. So that is a moment that is immortalised in our memories forever. So thank you.
No problem. Okay, take care.
Andrew, speak
There.